Good day, beautiful people. Welcome to Our Power is Within. I'm your host, Chaz Smith, aka Just Chaz, and I am on a mission to inspire people to take their power back and help them to realize that each and every one of us has a healer within our own self. When we can create an environment that supports healing and get out of our own way, we are truly capable of healing in mind, body, and soul. Whether you've been following along this whole time, or if this is just your first episode, thank you for being on this journey with me. I appreciate you all. And if you feel called to help me spread the message of empowerment, please consider leaving a 5-star rating if and only if I have earned it on Apple Podcast. Or if you feel so called, you could leave a quick review on Apple Podcast, or you could share your favorite episode on your social media account and tag me at Our Power is Within. So I'm curious, did you guys get down with last week's self-love check-in challenge? I really hope so. And the reason I hope so is because you are all worth it. We are all worth a little bit more self-love. So if you haven't checked in yet, no worries. Just start now. Check in with yourself right now. It doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. Put your hand on your heart and just ask how I can love you more. This week's challenge is actually going to come straight out of today's episode, as you will discover in just a little bit here from our guest herself. The challenge is to write down one behavior that you find yourself wanting to change or not participate in any longer. And then immediately after that, write down one behavior that you find that is more supportive and that you can replace the old behavior with. And then the next step is to spend the rest of the week and hopefully beyond practicing. As you will hear later in this episode, this is one of the tools that our guest Falguni Bhavsar used during her recovery process to help her rewire and create new positive behaviors that supported the life she wanted to design. Oh, and speaking of design, today we talk a lot about creating a life by design rather than by default, and this is one of my favorite topics. Falguni also shares with us a lot of different elements of her recovery and her healing or becoming journey. She started with DNRS, which is a brain rewiring program by Annie Hopper, and since has integrated other tools along the way, such as EFT, which we will also chat about today. And then we dive deep into how powerful of an experience she had in Dr. Cathleen King's Primal Trust mentorship, and how it was this awesome building block on top of her brain rewiring foundation. In case you are not familiar with the DNRS system, I did add a link to the show notes, but you might hear us refer to something called rounds or mini rounds. And this is simply a easily explained, it's just a self-guided type of meditative practice that we follow routinely every day to support our brain rewiring experience to create positive neuroplastic shifts and well-being. If the concept of neuroplasticity or brain rewiring is new to you, there are many wonderful brain rewiring programs available these days, including ANS Rewire, Gupta, VitalSide, and more. Some of you might actually remember episode number 9 with Lindsay Mitchell, who actually developed VitalSide. I'm personally a huge fan of her program because of the flexibility and how individualized it can be. And if we all haven't learned yet, we're not one size fits all. If you haven't caught episode 9, take a listen. I will also include links in the show notes for Dr. Kathleen's Primal Trust mentorship that begins April 20th, as I am personally also a huge fan of the work she is doing, and I have been really enjoying the mentorship myself. So give it a look, check it out, and see how it feels after you listen to this episode today. And if you're wondering why Dr. Cathleen King might sound familiar, but if you're not following her yet or you're not familiar with her, she was a guest on this podcast, episode number 26, talking all about primal trust. Now today with Falguni, we're going to go ahead and get a little bit deeper into primal trust from her experience. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into today's chat and welcome her to the show. Hey, Falguni, thanks so much for being on the show with me today. I am super excited to get to have this chat with you.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. I've heard your name in so many different communities, the DNRS, and seeing your name on the Primal Trust Mentorship Forum, and then just all over the place, even in rewiring your wellness community. So it's nice to finally get an opportunity to get to know the person behind the name.
Yeah, it's been kind of a interesting process, I think, starting out with DNRS and then moving my way through all the different rewiring platforms that are coming up with and it's just I think it's just a beautiful thing to participate in for me.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a beautiful thing that it has been emerging all these platforms and these communities and these sub communities outside of the standard forum that have grown and evolved. It's quite a beautiful and wonderful resource for people.
So much, yeah, for sure.
How long ago actually were you introduced to DNRS?
I started DNRS in January of 2018
Okay.
and basically claimed my recovery with limbic impairment February of 2019.
How did you know? Like, what were the signs for you that you knew that you felt ready to say you were recovered?
The sign was primarily for me, the looping had stopped, from a thought perspective. I can maintain emotional regulation, meaning I could, have a gamut of emotions and still come back to center and ground within a few minutes. And also, I could handle the challenges of life that come up and the stress response that would come up and be able to get myself regulated again, which I think is a big thing in recognition of when your limbic impairment is balanced. So yeah, so that's for me was the biggest part is that looping thought. I have so many looping thoughts, um, rumination, uh, all of that. And then early on in my recovery, my its were its are symptoms, signs and symptoms, and typically those subsided pretty quickly. And then I was left with the emotional balance. So then I worked on through those, and yeah, yeah, no. When I took the DNRS recorded program, which is where I started the videos, yeah, I could relate to the emotional pieces, but what was really kind of in my face were all the physical things at the time. So I didn't really get a good grasp and handle on the emotional stuff until the physical stuff started to balance out.
Mm, nice.
Yeah,
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah,
And so you had reclaimed recovery February 2019. Now we're in late March here, 2021, and you've recently just completed a a group mentorship program with Dr. Kathleen King called Primal Trust Mentorship, right?
correct.
Yeah. So being out of DNRS, feeling, recovered, what kind of created your interest in taking your next steps into the mentorship program? And had you been taking any other steps along the way
Yeah,
prior?
yeah. Thanks for asking this question because I think it's really important. When I went back, integrating back into life that year of 2019, a few things kind of hit me. Um, Neuroplasticity works both ways, positive and negative. And so neuroplasticity maintenance needs to become a big part of my life. And so that was the one of the biggest aha moments I had because I did have some situations in that year that one might think that their limbic impairment has returned, but that wasn't true. What had happened is just a situation occurred where the maladaptive stress response reactivated, and I ran the program again, and I was okay and got myself back into balance. And then I came into 2020, and of course, we all know that 2020 has been filled with primarily being at home with COVID being out there. And so I also took it as an opportunity in 2020 to do some self-development programs. I'm big into law of attraction. So I learned a lot about the law of attraction. I learned a lot more about the emotional regulation piece of our brain, which I wasn't too kind of educated up on. And so then that kind of led me towards the Rewiring Your Wellness retreat and providing a little kind of video snippet on how I, during my DNRS journey, shifted my thoughts and beliefs using note cards and using redirects in a way that allows us to recognize what the behavior we don't want and then the behavior we do want, and using that as part of the practice. So that's also kind of what led me to Kathleen's program, because she and I are kind of, our vortex is kind of intermixed as part of the Rewiring Your Wellness activity.
Oh, okay. So you met her through Rewiring Your Wellness.
Yeah, it just happened to be that I was unable to do my topic at that retreat, and Kathleen stepped in for me.
Oh, so funny how the universe works in our favor.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get into some of this stuff, but I do want to step back for just 1 second and address and ask a question. You said that you kind of experienced a maladaptive stress response that was reactivated, and that you ran the program again. And I wondered what that means for anyone listening. What did that entail?
So for another 6 months, I reactivated the 5 pillars of DNRS.
Oh, okay. So you had done it for about 13 months, took a break. And then when you felt you reached this point where you're like, oh, you know what? I need to re-regulate here. You spent 6 more months just going through the 5 pillars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I realized, when I came out of that, I realized, okay, this is something that these re-regulated pathways that I'm creating, that is my path. Because in life, when we're running through life, what's easy to do is run the old pathways.
Yeah.
Especially when certain situations come up and certain smells or anything in the environment. It's just sometimes our subconscious knows and is aware of that pattern and can run it. Yeah. And if you let it run, it will present itself to you in that way. If it had been whatever it had been in the form that it presents itself to you, whether it's a behavior or coping mechanism or a symptom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's that's so interesting, because I see that sometimes. I see how because you also said you realized that neuroplasticity needed to become a regular part of life.
Yes.
And I know that's something I've very much experienced, because just to be an observer, it's been so interesting to just watch and witness how, when you think you have something like this new behavior or new pattern so ingrained, it's so interesting how, when you're actually just living life again, how those old things can indeed creep back in. And if you're not being conscious and aware of them and redirecting them, it's funny how that old saying, old habits die hard. I'm learning you legitimately have to really maintain habits, whether they're the healthy habits, so that the old unhealthy, quote unquote unhealthy ones don't creep back in.
Yeah.
They have to be replaced with something else.
Totally. Totally. And there's also, when you're living life again, which is what we do when we're getting to the point where we're maintaining our well-being, other things come up.
Yes.
And how do you handle that? And how do you regulate around that? And so there's a lot of consciousness that needs to be recognized in this whole process.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's been talked about on here before, and maybe even by Dr. Kathleen King herself, that we learn these really wonderful tools in specifically the brain retraining program to help us develop some positively influence the neuroplasticity of our brain and develop some really productive, healthy approaches. And with that said, we learn a lot how to redirect, but sometimes in life, we can't spend our whole life redirecting everything. Sometimes we actually have to, like you said, be able to regulate. We can't
Mm-hmm.
just redirect forever. It's like, well, part of living is also having that human experience, allowing these, life situations and real emotions to surface. And how
Yeah.
do I regulate and
Yeah.
how do I be with them?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other aha moment for me was, I never really could understand what redirect meant. That was very challenging for me, which is why using, a method like a note card where on the front, you write, a behavior that you're doing. And then on the back, you write a behavior that you want to shift into, was so effective because I was able to kind of customize my thought patterns in the pathways that I wanted to build. And when I look back on those pathways that I was building, it was really more around courage, bravery, trust, all the things that we need to regulate safety. Safety is a big one.
Yeah, yes, I would say safety is a huge one for probably many of us
Yeah.
that have experienced limbic impairment, hence the hypervigilance.
Yeah, yes, yes. So safety continues to be one of the things that I maintain on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I've come to learn that it's something you actually can't just tell yourself, I'm safe. You
No,
have to show
you have to
yourself.
show yourself.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to show yourself you're safe over and over and over again. I really like that note card idea. I think I'm gonna steal it.
Yeah.
Writing even what a note card or in whatever capacity makes sense to me, but to actually notice not only the behavior I'm doing that I
Yeah.
don't want, but what do I actually want to shift into? That's really awesome.
The great thing about DNRS is that it exposes you to a gamut of individuals in the community that share information and share ideas. And I received this idea actually from another DNRSer, and then took it and ran with however I wanted to use it, basically, right? So it allowed me to also bring in aspects of Rick Hanson's linking method and Joe Dispenza's kind of, okay, time, space, here we are, what do you want? Whatever it is you want, that's what you're going to get, right? And then when you give it to yourself, you give it to yourself with love.
Right.
And with total surrender. And that's when all those things start to become a different reality.
Yeah, yeah. I know something that I think is really important is, and I've said this even in my career, my profession in the past, trying to explain this to people is like when you want to create these positive shifts in your life, you want to create them from a place of love, not like hate. You don't want to like hate everything so much that you're resisting these parts of you. You want to just love yourself so much that you're creating and manifesting new parts.
Exactly.
For anyone who's listening, could you maybe briefly explain what you mean by the linking method by Rick Hansen?
Yeah. So Rick and the only book I read of Rick's was the book called Resilient. And in that book, he talks about situations that you have experienced in your life. Your brain, when you experience a new experience, your brain is scanning for like experiences, right? To kind of link up and say, okay, is this safe or not? Like, is this good or bad, right? And so he uses that concept within your brain function to say, okay, here's an experience that you don't want. Link it to an experience that you do want. So it's a conscious linkage. And then when you practice that with neuroplasticity, repetition, focus, and that positive association creates that into your reality. So you create that brain pathway.
Right. Yeah, this reminds me of like incremental training in a sense.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, very
essentially,
similar.
yeah, the more that I do research and read, other experts in the field and different books and do, just study different things, the more I totally understand and see how DNRS was brought together, just kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
understanding the components of it.
Yeah, I see it as an amalgamation of a bunch of different practices that have been out. And, Annie Hopper did a really amazing job bringing it all together into a program.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's foundational to my life now.
Agreed. Yeah, very much. Um, and then I mean, I'm forever grateful. I feel like it's a beautiful system put together. I do know that it can often really be supported by some other tools and
Yeah,
programs,
totally.
as we've already kind of talked about, as you're learning how to transition into life and not rely on needing to follow that program in a really rigid structure anymore. It's nice to have other outlets and tools to kind of help with that integration period.
I totally agree. I totally agree because one of the things that there's not a lot of information on the DNRS forum is about integration,
Right.
life after you use the program, and you get a sense of this sense of okayness, and you're like, okay, now where am I going? How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Or like how you said, then you're out living in life and new
yeah,
experiences
yeah,
happen and new things come up. And you're
yeah,
like, wait, how do I navigate
yeah.
this?
Well, I also a bunch of us had kind of gotten to our DNRS finish lines quite at the same time. And so I said, okay, let's create a kind of this recovery group that we can share how we are handling things getting back into life. And it was a WhatsApp group, and it's just really great because then a bunch of us just kind of share our experiences and we learn from each other. And if somebody is having a day where they might have a challenge, they can be supported by this wonderful group of people who came together to share their experiences in their own life living.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge, because support community, knowing you're not alone in these challenges and what's coming up, and then having somebody else who's already navigated it is so powerful.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest emotions that came up for me when when I reactivated the DNRS program for that 6 months was the feeling that I wasn't safe and the feeling that everything was going back to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know that that's just my brain, and that brain can run that pathway, and I can build different pathways, and I am building different pathways. I continue to build different pathways every day. I haven't stopped building pathways since, even though I stopped doing DNRS as a program, I have not stopped building pathways.
Right. You just use different tools
I'm
now,
using
right?
different tools. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the nice thing, is the more you learn and the more you do this work, you start realizing there's lots of really
Yeah.
wonderful tools out there to be able to integrate.
So many different tools. And
Yeah.
yeah. And and on your journey, whatever your journey may be, whatever tool may fit you at the time is the one that you can leverage. So
Hmm.
that's the beauty
Absolutely.
about the world.
Yeah, and I think one of the beautiful things about DNRS is that it really helps us. I literally all the time, people are probably sick of hearing me say this, but I say it's more of a journey of becoming, not healing,
Yes.
more of remembering,
Yes.
stepping in alignment with that truth of who we are, tapping into that intuitive side of us. And the more that we harness that intuition and connect to that truer self, the more we're able to basically know what feels right for us and say, I need to do this meditation right now. I need to do, like, this feels really juicy, or this is
Mm-hmm.
what's going to really support me in this moment. You
Mm-hmm.
start to really connect with what is truth for you.
Agreed. Agreed. That kind of leads us up to the primal trust.
Yeah, yeah, that was going to be my next question, because we basically we went off and on some other avenues for a little while there, but we're going to go back to this primal trust, which is you, so you discovered, or you learned and connected with Kathleen through the Rewiring Your Wellness retreat. She stepped in for you when you had to step out of the event, and you guys connected that way. So then you learn about this primal trust mentorship. Where were you at that time in your journey, and what created the interest for you to take the next step into entering it?
I wasn't actually initially going to take the mentorship. I had heard about it through other friends of mine. Um, and then Kathleen and I started having discussions about, kind of our backgrounds and things that kind of make our light stay lit, if you will. And we realized that we have a lot of commonality. And so, so at that point, between the two of our discussions, I was like, okay, this is something that, because I got to know it a little bit better through her words a little bit. And then, yeah, that's when I had decided. So, and then she also had proposed that, she needed some help with the Primal Trust forum that she's creating as part of the mentorship. And so I had said, she had asked me if it's something I would be interested in helping her with. And I said yes.
Awesome. So you kind of help navigate the forum, right?
Yes, I do. I help navigate. Yeah.
Will you continue to do that in the next mentorship program?
Yeah, I will.
Awesome. And so you weren't going to take it, but then you kind of decided that it felt right based on your guys' ongoing discussions. And so what was the experience like for you in this program?
I have to say, like you said, with DNRS, it kind of brings you to your, the idea is to bring yourself out. And what had happened between the time that I stopped practicing DNRS and the time that the Primal Trust mentorship came along is sometimes when you're living life, you kind of lose sight of that true self that came out. And so it really ignited the initial thing that really got me was, oh, there it is. There's my true self. Built the awareness, stronger awareness of who I am, stronger awareness of what my values are, stronger awareness around what I stand for and what makes me feel good and what I love to do, and do more of that.
Yeah.
And like I had mentioned earlier, I had no idea that part-time personalities existed. So I learned a lot about my part-time personalities. Like you said, in the past, you've gone through and named them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started naming mine too. And once I started naming mine and understanding them and really kind of incorporating them into who I am as a person, I just feel like this stronger and stronger me is emerging as a result of it.
Yeah. That's amazing. For anyone who's listening that doesn't even know what we're talking about, part-time personalities, could you give them a brief explanation?
Yeah. So Kathleen calls these parts of us. Every time we have an experience in our life, there is a part that gets created through that experience. And a lot of times through, if you're experiencing a traumatic experience, those part-time people or personalities get fragmented, meaning that experience kind of stays outside of your reality and kind of is in tandem with who you are. And it's not really kind of inside of you. It's there. And they tend to give the sense that there is something not right. There's something unsafe, and talk in a perspective that it's not within your soul. So they're kind of at a distance from who you are. So they're called part-time personalities because it's easy for you to kind of, if the situation is strong, you can switch into that part-time personality for a minute, and that personality could take over the show and run your day-to-day activities. And then it'll take some energy and some effort once you recognize that that's a part-time personality to switch back into your true self.
Right. Yeah. That's the key, is recognizing that these part-time personalities aren't actually the true essence of who we are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're not the true essence of who we are. They're experiences. They're a result of experiences that we've had, but they are not the true essence.
Yeah. Learned and conditioned behaviors, more or less. Yeah. And so when you kind of stepped into this program, you really didn't know that much was going to come out of it, huh?
No, I had no clue.
You're like, wait, what is a part-time personality? I didn't know I had these.
So here's the great news is I didn't know I had them, but I had enough grounding and enough practice and recovery under my belt that I could handle them. So when they did come up, I was able to say, okay, I see that. I recognize it. I understand it. Okay, now what do we do to bring that into who I am? Accept it. Kind of integrate it. That was the work for me.
Yeah, that's a keyword, acceptance, right?
Acceptance.
Through all this journey, acceptance. So I'm really curious about the values side of things. I know that Kathleen places a huge emphasis on, helping us discover what our true values are. Knowing that over time, as we grow, expand, transform, the values might shift and change. And I think values is a great topic because I think so many people don't actually even ever really sit with that and ask themselves what their values are, or be aware of what the values are that are driving their behaviors every day, and determining like, and discovering, oh, the values that are driving my behaviors actually don't align with like what my soul really wants to create. So, but again, accepting like, okay, accepting these are the values I have today. But as I do this work, these values, my actions can start supporting different values that support the life I genuinely want to create.
Totally. Totally. The values exercise. I've done many values exercises in my past experiences. Um, I, was an executive corporate type, and through all those executive corporate trainings, there was a lot of values assessments. But one thing so I kind of knew what some of my values were already. However, what I didn't realize was that as I went through the program and I went through the value deepening process that Kathleen has in her Primal Trust mentorship, that the values that you think are your values could be your part-time personality values,
Yes.
and not your own. So this whole process gave me an opportunity to kind of tease apart, what is it really that my true self values? And what is it that my part-time personalities value? And so that I can continue to honor what my part-time personalities value, but at the same time, honor my true essence, my true self.
Yes, 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 yes.
And that was the bigger part of it, is a lot of my values that I had learned through my corporate learning was my part-time personality values. They weren't mine. The only one that was mine was creativity. So that was common between everything.
Yeah, the common thread.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so interesting, because I was going to say, sometimes I know when people start doing that like type of deep work on values, myself included, is you almost have this kind of shock, like this surprise, like, oh, wait, I've been letting these values drive my life. And I really thought they were mine, but they're not. They're just, like you said, the part of the part-time personality values. And I think that's so great because, it starts to really allow us to make these conscious choices in how we create our life, like the life we want to create and design, rather than, the life that we're living by default per se.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think DNRS has kind of started opening my eyes around my choices or lack thereof. I think it was more of a lack. And then moving through that year and then coming into the Primal Trust mentorship, I more and more realized that I was living my life on default. And I need to empower myself to choose what I want, which is exactly what the law of attraction tells you to do. So it just happened to be this beautiful kind of space to allow myself to experiment with those types of things and learn more about them.
Yeah, I agree. I know that in some regards, the law of attraction can get a bad reputation.
Yes.
And that it makes me sad, because I personally feel that I feel like it's, I don't know the right word, like maybe misexplained, misinterpreted, misunderstood. Yeah. And sometimes by the people explaining it, and sometimes by the person learning about it. I think it's all interpretation, because when you actually understand, like truthfully, what is trying to be expressed or explained, it's extremely empowering, and often can be misinterpreted as disempowering, when in fact that's not very true. It's literally all about just creating. It's creation. It's literally about creation. And I know that there's things that will just happen in life, and we have certain destinies, and we can't control. And I think that's the misunderstanding, is a lot of people think it means we're trying to control outcome, rather than create an experience, which is really a choice based on choices that we make to support that creation every day.
It is. I mean, this is really more about a different way of being, essentially. Creation is a self-serving method. This is something that you decide what you want to do based on what you value.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, just like to give people an example who are listening, is a good way to know if something's by default or design is like the person who says that they value health and
Yeah,
well-being, but then their actions aren't supporting that, and they find it really
exactly.
difficult to create the actions that support it. And often it's because there's this other value that's actually driving their behavior that, as you've learned, is more than likely coming from that part-time
Yeah.
personality. Like, and it's probably something like safety,
Yep.
right? Like, it's probably, oh, ultimately these other behaviors aren't getting me to the life that I desire, but it's helping my brain feel safe.
Yeah. As I go through these part time personalities and understand their values and understand kind of where they came from, I'm realizing that I would say a majority of my situation is really around feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Bottom
Yeah.
line. And if I feel safe, I can do whatever I want to do. If I don't feel safe, it's definitely effort to get into that momentum.
Yeah. A lack of safety at a nervous system level can really create restriction.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So, I know the mentorship program for the first group is over now.
Yes.
So what were some of your biggest, like we kind of talked about your biggest takeaways learning about the part-time personalities, incorporating who you are and having a stronger you emerge, but do you have any other big takeaways? And um in the two parts, what is there anything from that program you learned that you're still implementing?
What I really recognize from that program is um, the formula for transformation that Kat has, which is primal trust plus true self equals transformation. Okay. I found who my true self is. I am practicing the primal trust frequency. So for me, I'm practicing that frequency. And so I know that once that frequency is in and it is a pathway that I have that automatically runs aligned with my true self, then the transformation will continue to build.
Yes.
So that's what I'm continuing to work on. So I use all the tools. I use every tool she's taught. And I think the one tool that I've been using a lot more than not is the I want, I resist, divine neutrality tool.
What is that?
It is basically so if you have a situation that comes up that you want to do something, yet you don't want to do it because you have these concerns. And then you also, on top of it, have this resistance. And there's the reasons why you have the resistance, but there's also the resistance. You like it because sometimes it'll allow you to self sabotage yourself. So this process brings awareness to all these different aspects of what you want and why you resist it. And then it also helps you to kind of come into your, what she calls the adult mean personality, which is your true self, and align with it and then lift up into a higher self position so that you can find neutrality between the I want and the I resist. And that divine neutrality is really where the truth, the primal trust kind of comes in. Because can you recognize neutrality in this situation and accept it, and accept that you have these things that you feel when you resist it, and accept that you want these things but then sometimes you don't want it. Accept all of that and bring it into a neutral space, and being able to kind of, and she calls it being able to get up into your like divine neutrality, higher self, main personality kind of combination, flying around, kind of looking at an eagle eye view, and really being able to recognize that, okay, this is, yes, this is in the dance, this is what's going on. But then when you get up into the balcony, I can handle it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no big deal.
That's so cool. And once again, we see the word accept. Accept, accept, accept.
Acceptance is a big part of primal trust.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big part of the whole
Yeah.
journey of healing
Yeah.
to, yeah, accept where you're at, and then, you know, make conscious choices to create something new, but also accept.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome. And you're still using her tools through the Primal Trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that tool that you just explained to us is a really like a tool that shows up for you to help actually develop the Primal Trust. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I kind of, I coined this term during the mentorship of part parties. Like there's a lot of times where I have part parties going on where a bunch of my parts show up and they all want to all have something to say about the situation, which is why sometimes I think there's individuals out there who are doing limbic retraining and they don't know whether it's their limbic system or something else.
Yeah.
And for me, being able to just say, okay, limbic system aside, if all these parts exist because of my experience, right, my past experience, regardless of limbic system impairment, I can still recognize what each part is saying to me and still understand. And so part of the neutrality process is to recognize all of them, bring them all in, and show them that Falguni, the main person, is here now, is here. It's okay. We can exchange information. We can become part of each other, and we can integrate, and we're okay.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you know what it reminds me of? That movie Inside Out
Yes.
is it Inside Out, the kids
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah.
Like when all the different emotions
Yep.
are like in the brain, like blah, 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 like fighting each other and
Yeah.
getting judged, but then you learn that they all play a role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, the biggest win is that the fear wasn't there anymore. Like in me being able to recognize who these are, they're part of me, they're who I am, they may be who I am today, but that doesn't mean that they make me. Those experiences don't necessarily have to make you who you are. They can be part of you, but they don't have to make who you are.
That is a huge one. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because
Yeah.
I think it goes back to like what you said earlier that when you ended up running the 6 months of DNRS again, that what came up was you had these feelings that you weren't safe and everything was going to go back to what it was. And that wasn't actually truth. And I see so much how to come to this realization and this knowing that you just talk about and say that the fear's not there because now you actually just see these are all parts. It doesn't make who you are.
No.
Like that dissolves the fear that showed up earlier in your journey, where like now if things show up, it's not like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm going to revert. All the old things are coming back. It's like, no, that's not true.
It's not true.
Yeah.
And that's, the truth really helps kind of maintain your primal trust frequency, being able to see it, being able to revel in it, being able to recognize it and stay there, because that helps build the divine neutrality statements for yourself.
Right. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that this mentorship really complemented the brain retraining program.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Now that you've done it, because I know there's a lot of questions out there in some of the WhatsApp groups and communities like, oh, well, how far should I be in brain retraining? Like, when is it right for me to do this? And ultimately, I know only people can decide for themselves what's truly right for them. But having experienced it and also done this program beside many other individuals, do you have any thoughts on like when it feels like it's a really good time to integrate it and integrate the two together?
Let's see. I truly believe that it's time to take a next step when you have a sense of kind of confidence and a sense of groundedness in where you are with your rewiring. So let's say, because, when we started rewiring program in the beginning of the programs, we, kind of run the program, we stick to it. And there's a lot of challenges that come with the program, right? Because our brains don't want to change and they try to go back into the old habits and all that old patterns and things of that nature. So when you're running new patterns pretty consistently, and you may have an occasional here and there that you have an old pattern show up, I think that would be a good opportunity for you to kind of step into the next level of what I say of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And from my from my experience, the biggest aha moments is that neuroplasticity works both ways. And if
Yes.
you choose to be negative, you're going to run negative pathways. If you choose to be not to be negative, you're going to run different pathways. And so for me, it was really, the resistance I was having to initially taking it was, oh, I got this. I got this. I don't need anything else. And then I realized, oh, Falguni, growth is universal. You don't have to resist growth. It's okay. And I think sometimes people resist the fact that, oh, I did this program, I graduated, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't want to do anything else. That doesn't mean that you can't get into something different to expand.
Right.
Expansion is all within the universal law of being. So it's all within whatever reach that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah, for sure. And so you said you still use a lot of the tools today that you got and developed and learned from the
Yeah.
Primal Trust mentorship. What types of maintenance tools do you use for the neuroplasticity part and the brain retraining?
The neuroplasticity part. Okay, so I continue in the mentorship. You will learn a structure sheet. It's a process by which you recognize your identity. You understand, the things that the new intentions you want to bring in, the things you want to let go, things that you want to incrementally train with, and then awareness. And then there's also an emotional elevation piece to it, movement, and then to do stuff, right? And so for me, the neuroplasticity pieces, I bounce back and forth between different techniques. Right now I'm using a lot of EFT. It just seems to work for me. And then occasionally I'll, like just yesterday, I did a mini round because I felt like I needed to do something like that. I just did a mini round. And then Kathleen also has her own ABC dimensional shift process, which is her own brain rewiring program. So I use that a lot. I use that a lot when I'm working through a new layer of things that I discovered, something that I want to do that I sense a little bit of resistance to, and move myself through with that using that ABC process.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And just quickly, the ABC process is really about building awareness, B, breath work, C, creation, choice. So it's kind of a down and dirty way of getting through yourself from these different states into a state of creation.
Right. Yeah. Because I know that's a huge part of Kathleen's work is to teach people or to inspire people to like not to focus so much on healing,
Yes.
but creating. Because when we're focused so much on healing, it's kind of, it all goes to the law of attraction. It's also the same as when you're stuck in a place of wanting versus creating.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And if you're, if healing is such an arbitrary thought, it's like, well, what expectation have you created for yourself to consider yourself healed? And if you could shift from focusing on this arbitrary idea of what healed means to creating the life that you desire, the healing inevitably kind of follows.
Yeah, I agree. It shifts you. It's, it goes back to her kind of tagline, which is create your brain state. It's basically, what do you want to create? How do you want to create that?
Right. Yeah. Rather than it just being kind of very, again, default.
Yeah. I find, because creation for me has always been a high value. And so I really connect with the mentorship, and I very much appreciate all the work and thought and effort that has gone into creating all these tools and all these courses and instruction, especially when you're trying to explain something that can be confusing at times.
Yeah, definitely. So when do you, because you kind of said the other day you did a mini round because you felt like that's what you needed.
Mm-hmm.
When do you incorporate EFT? I'm curious. I actually haven't had anyone on the show yet to really kind of talk about EFT.
Yeah.
And so is it something like you kind of just do it when you need it, when you sense there's a need for it, or do you just do it as a routine just to get it done?
I do it. Well, for me, it's like both. So, what I'll do in the morning when I get up is I'll check in with myself and say, okay, what's going on? What am I feeling? What have I got going on today? And then I'll decide. And so a lot of times I'll either do a 15-minute tapping in the morning, or I won't do anything in the morning. I'll just do some meditative phrases, some chants, and I'll go on my walk and go on about my way. It all depends on, I always check in with myself in the morning and say, what is happening right now? What's in, just kind of be in my body and really let my body talk to me. And so depending on what my body is telling me is what I decide I'm going to do. Yeah. And then this, like yesterday, or no, it was 2 days ago, sorry, I decided that in the afternoon I needed a little bit of a lift. So I did a different practice in the afternoon, a somatic experiencing practice, which was cool. It all depends. For me, it's like I have to do something every day for my own self-care. I want to. It's not that I have to. I want to. And now I have a whole toolbox of tools.
Yeah. And then you just get to choose what feels right or what supports you in that moment.
Yeah.
So what would be how do I ask this question? What would be an experience, more like internal experience, that might happen that would make you crave, desire, and want to use EFT as the tool? Like, what would be a moment or an experience that EFT would really support in that moment?
For me, it's really been around anxiety. It's feeling uneasy about something, is feeling that I need to kind of get back into myself, into my center. And by doing the tappings on the different acupressure points, it brings me back in to myself, into my center. So it's basically more about when I'm starting to get out of alignment, then I use it to kind of help me settle back into my alignment.
I love that. Yeah. And do you just kind of do it organically, or do you follow guided EFT?
I do both. I do organic. If I'm experiencing something very specific, then I'll do my own kind of phraseology, if you will. But a lot of times I'll use the tapping solution, which is a great app that they have that is kind of pioneered by Nick and Jessica Ortner. And they have a lot of great tapping meditations. And I just bought their yearly subscription, which is $67 for the whole year for all the tappings that you want.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that app. I don't have the full version yet, though, so I only get like the free ones.
Yeah.
But I do find it supportive. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Unlearn Your Pain by Dr. Howard Schubiner.
I have not read that book.
No, he has this interesting, it's not a normal tapping. It's only on the karate chop point. Yeah. That's the only place you tap. But I find that using that little tapping tool and the phrases he has you kind of work through or say out loud, I find that is a really wonderful substitute for me to a mini round.
Yeah.
So rather than like saying out loud the first, like, what is it, five steps, yeah. 6 steps of the round, I'll use that little tapping tool, and I find it to be so productive and powerful for me.
That is so awesome. See, everybody finds things that kind of come up and help support their regulation on a day-to-day basis when you're going through life.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think I love about it, it kind of goes back into the acceptance piece, accepting the different parts of you.
Yeah.
Because it's literally acknowledging whether it's the anxiety rising in the moment or an itch showing up. I've discovered for me, it can be so easy, especially in my past, to resist, or you go into like the fear states of, oh, why is this coming up? What am I doing wrong? And wanting it to not be there. And this particular little tool is about acceptance. It's just like acknowledging that, hey, this emotion or this symptom or this sensation, as I prefer to like try to call, anything physical now, they're just sensations.
Yeah.
Like, even though that's here right now, or even though this trigger is affecting me, I still love and accept myself. And just getting to like remind myself that really helps me to just accept what is in that moment.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it seems like you're really more about kind of approaching every day intuitively, checking in with yourself and using tools on an as needed basis. based on what feels right for you or what will support you best. But do you have any types of daily rituals? And I don't mean like specifically neuroplasticity rewiring tools, but just self care in general, like rituals, things where you're like, you know what, walking really supports me and I walk almost every day. Like, do you have anything like that?
Well, the rituals that I do on a daily basis are I do walk. I do enjoy walking outside, being in nature, touching greenery. Um, I love to work with my hands. So anything that I get to create with my hands, for to me, is very, very meditative. It is very kind of soothing. So I picked up beading not too long ago. So I do a lot of jewelry beading. And then the other ritual is I do this chanting. Uh, it's the chakra mantra chanting. And so I do it anytime that I just kind of want to feel connected to my own higher vibration. And it always brings me back to center.
Wow.
So it's kind of
What is
cool.
it? Or where can we learn about it?
Oh, on Insight Timer, there is a chakra mantra chant. Another DNRS friend of mine introduced me to it. And yeah, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is awesome, because what it does, each mantra that you hum has a different vibration, has a different frequency. And each of those frequencies, when they're put together, create this sense of stillness. It almost like recreates the primal trust frequency. I just realized that now that I'm talking about it. It creates that sense of okayness, that personal power, that sense of I'm here now in this.
I'm going to look that up.
It brings you back to center. Yeah. It is a really cool one. And I do it in the shower. I do it, sometimes I'll do it when I'm sitting here, just putting together a couple beads and a couple pieces of jewelry, or while I'm making dinner.
Okay, so you've learned it, so you don't need to use the timer, the
I don't
Insight
need to use
timer.
the timer. And
Yeah.
they're very short phrases. Like I'll go through them. Lam, vam, yam, hum, om. What is the last one? It's kind of slipping my brain right now.
I don't think I've done the one that you're talking about specifically, but I definitely have done a Insight timer meditation using these
Yes.
these specifics. Like, yeah, I would by David G is the one I did.
Yeah. I do that. I've done that one before too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're very similar.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's like actually a form of vocal toning, which is which is a beautiful, beautiful tool to use to help regulate your nervous system and to feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It activates the polyvagal stuff. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. Have you ever done the Kundalini Kriya chant, the Sata Nama?
I did that once a while back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really like that one too. Yeah. It's actually recommended by Dr. Amen to support the brain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the one that I started doing at the top of COVID, because I read an article that it was helping patients in India recover from COVID, was listening to the Gayatri mantra. And it's at the frequency above the virus, so that anytime that something comes up within that frequency, that it just kind of helps you combat it.
Oh, interesting. And what is that? How do you spell that?
Gayatri, Gayartri, and then mantra.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'll have to find some links to leave in the show notes for everybody listening. So in all of this experience between brain rewiring, everything in between, Primal Trust mentorship, what has been your biggest challenge through this journey?
The biggest challenge, recognizing that I have all these, there's a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts, and figuring out how to bring them all together in the space of solidarity for myself. Because I know once I get there, I'll be good. But I'm not quite there yet.
Well, We are
I'm on my
always a
way.
work in progress,
I'm on
right?
my way. Yes, we're all work in progress.
As long as
And
you're on your way.
oh yeah, and I feel definitely way more empowered with the Primal Trust tools than I did without them. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of information. And I think sometimes when we individuals take programs and learn tools, we don't go back and review the goodness that we now have in our toolbox. So I encourage people who are listening to this and who do end up taking a mentorship to really be encouraged to use each and every one of those tools, because this is again, these tools are there to help you kind of become. So it's not just to be used in the 3-month span. It's part of incorporating them into your daily life.
Right. Well, yeah, because we're creating forever. We're
Yeah,
creating
we're going
until
to be
the day
creating
we
forever.
die.
So these create foundational, like I say, like, if you're building a house, my bottommost foundation is DNRS. I still go back to it if I need it, right? It's there. Now I'm building this another layer of primal trust. And then something else is going to come along and I'll build it there. Like with EFT kind of helps with the primal trust. And so then, there's other things that I know that I'll come across in my lifetime that'll help me continue to expand in that space. So I really do believe that we need to give ourselves time to incorporate these things into our daily life.
I agree. And I think that even saying how much more you're empowered by the Primal Trust tools is like, that says something.
It does.
Yeah.
They really spoke to me like at an internal, like, soul level. Yeah.
I've heard that from several people.
To a point where I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, like there's a lot of like ohs. Like, come up.
Like aha moments. Yeah, that's
I
so
love aha
awesome.
moments. Yeah.
Me too. I feel like I just had a really big one the other day and I can't think of what it is right now, but I was where, I don't even know where I was. Oh, it was yesterday Sunday? No, it was Sunday. I was doing I was listening to a live piano meditation out on a walk.
Uh-huh.
I decided to do it walking. And I had like this major epiphany. I was like, oh, wow. Like, not what I expected to go out there and experience, but so great.
Don't you love that?
I do. It's just like, I can just like feel how I was like smiling, thinking, wow. So what's been the greatest gift for you? Obviously most of us end up finding DNRS as a tool because we're not exactly in the place that we desire to be. We're usually in pain, physically, emotionally. But I hear so often how many people say that there's that a gift emerges from the pain that we go through. And do you know what your greatest gift has been in all of it?
Yeah, my greatest gift has been falling ill to the point where it needed to open my eyes wide enough so that I would do something about it. Because I was running life on default and I was letting things happen to me. And so the biggest gift is this awakening, this awareness that I get to choose, and I am choosing, and I will choose, and I do choose to do what I want to do, what makes me sing, what makes my heart glow. So that's the biggest gift of all of this.
Yeah, who would have thought, right? Like, I feel like most of us are like, who would have thought it would come this far when you just start?
Yeah, you don't really realize. Yeah. And then you have other gifts too, that, you have other gifts to share with the world.
Exactly. So where are you at now? Like, what are you up to in this world? How are you using this gigantic gift of this experience of stepping into your truer self? And like, how are you using that to be a gift in your navigation of the world today?
Yeah. For the time of my initial recovery, my family pretty much took up my responsibilities and helped. And so now my job is being there as my kids are growing up, mothering them, handling everything that comes with the house, building my life back up from the ground. And it starts with my family. Mm-hmm. So that's my focus, is my family. Second will be creation. I have this beading stuff that I do, which I love, and I will continue to do as my meditative practice. And then, I'm stepping into this kind of construct that I've learned that I love to teach and I love to mentor. And so I'll be helping Kat out in her upcoming Living Alchemy community twice a month. And I will be sharing my own wisdom on that community in a section called Alchemy Corner.
I love it. Yes. Yay. I was actually going to ask you about that because I do want to just kind of make a mention here for anyone listening who's like, wait, what's she talking about? Dr. Cathleen King is offering this beautiful community. Do you know when it actually launches?
The community launched yesterday for registration for those who have gone through the Primal Trust mentorship. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So the community is for anyone who actually completes the Primal Trust mentorship, which is so awesome because community is such an integral part of our healing experience, our becoming, our remembering. It's so our transformation. Community is everything, I think. So I'm super excited that she has this program, this community space that she's created to support everyone on their journey and allow us to support each other.
She so has.
Yeah.
That's been another gift, is, kind of getting involved in her vision and becoming what I want to become as a mechanism through that. So
that is awesome though. I'm super excited that you're going to be part of it and helping to teach and mentorship within it. I know that you've been playing an integral role in that first group experience. So
learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel very passionate about it as well.
Yeah. Well, that passion shines through. And she is lucky to have you, as we are all lucky to have her.
Yes.
Yeah. I look forward to getting to finish the mentorship myself and be a part of that as well. Do you have a message that you want to share with the world? Just like, I know I have my mission, like I'm here to spread a message. Do you have like a message that just is like this fire in your belly that you feel passionate to share with the world?
The one phrase that was always stuck with me that I didn't quite understand until recently is from an individual who I have respected throughout my entire life. And the phrase is, be the change that you want to see in the world. So if you want to see something different, model it, become it, show how it can be done. Because a lot of times what happens in our lives is we go through our life by default and we don't realize that we do have choice. We do have capacity and agency to choose what it is that we want to do if we want to do something different. And to be able to come into that power is a magnificent thing if we can all realize that we have that and we can step into it. But to do that, you have to be able to change.
Yes. And be the change. Yes.
Change. Yes.
Thank you for saying that all, because I'm like smiling ear to ear because that lights me up. I completely agree with everything you said tenfold. And I'm glad that, you said that. And I think that the more people who do the work and who are able to start realizing this truth and step into it, the more we're going to see a massive shift in the collective conscious and beautiful things shifting in our world and on our planet. And I'm really passionate about all of that also.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's found,
it's way too easy to sometimes sit back and act like it's all happening to you and to like complain about the things that you don't want to see in the world. And it's like, well, we have to start here within our own self with the way that we, what we can control is what we choose to do and think. So
I remember the day I added, I am the creator of my own entire reality to my proclamation in my DNRS rounds. That was the day I realized, yeah, this is all in my space and I get to create it. So,
Creator of my entire reality. Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah.
I think that my proclamation for a long time, I've shifted it a little.
Yeah.
Now that I'm doing it more as maintenance. I had, I create the life of my dreams.
Yes.
I create it because it didn't feel quite right yet to say I'm living the life of my
Yeah.
dreams, but it felt really right to say that I
am.
get to create the life of my dreams. So
That's so beautiful. Awesome.
yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything else that you feel called to share with anybody that maybe I didn't ask you about or I missed?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. Awesome. Where can people find you at if they want to connect with you?
I am on Instagram. My handle is Falguni Bhav. And I'm not quite so much on Facebook these days, but just primarily on Instagram.
Okay. And then they can also find you in that Living Alchemy community
Yes,
after they complete that mentorship,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is launching soon, April 20th, I think, right?
Yes. Is the next group. Yes.
Awesome. And you'll be still kind of in there helping with the forum and all that?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, I will be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today and for sharing your wisdom and opening up and sharing your experience and, just everything that you've shared today, I think is really powerful and really inspiring. And I have no doubt that there's somebody out there who will be listening and this will be their aha moment or an epiphany for them. Something will sit well with somebody where something just feels right and they're going to be ready to take those next steps. So that's a really beautiful thing that you've done.
Oh, thank you for offering me this opportunity to give that gift to whoever is listening. Yeah.
All right, you guys, that's a wrap. As always, thanks for being on this journey with me. And I do hope that in some way today's episode and Falguni's message was able to inspire you. And that is always my hope. So do not forget to do the replacement behavior challenge. And until next time, let's make this week great.